I am here to be present here to talk a few words on the conceptual framework of extension education. The concept as such, we all know that stretching technology to the farmers or the people downtrodden in the villages, we have to reach the unreached. The scientific technologies have to be reaching the rural folks to bring them in the scientific community. So the conceptual framework talks more on how the information can be disseminated to the villages, the knowledge can be imparted, the attitude can be changed, and the skill can be imparted. So developing the knowledge to the rural community is the sense they should be updated with all the technical knowledge of the scientific acumen. And regarding the attitude, the most of them will not be having a positive attitude towards progressive farming. For that, extension worker must work hard to change the attitude of the people, and accordingly the farmers or any rural people can have an inclination to adopt the modern methods of farming. Similarly, the decision making is another confusing phenomena of the rural people. Whether to go for indigenous technology or else to shift to scientific farming is yet another decision making which is again most confusing among the rural people. So the extension worker must be able to persuade them to decide in a proper way whether to go towards scientific farming or else to improve the traditional knowledge already existing in the rural folk. And according to Enspenger, extension education means educating the people to improve the capacity of the individual. Capacity in the sense they must be equipped with knowledge, skill, good attitude, and other attributes also. Other attributes in the sense they should have a good beliefs, good values, good habits towards the modernization of farming. So education as such will be imparting more of the technical knowledge to the rural people and ultimately changing the people from the positive attitude and imparting the lot of skills which are really complicated to take up farming in a very efficient and effective way. The concept of extension education will be putting into larger premises and focusing the rural people or having enormous potential for development. In the sense, they will be having a lot of land resources, water resources, financial resources, and a lot of bank resources, and all these must be properly streamlined for development. So it means there is a lot of potential for the rural people for the growth, number one. Number two is development should take place at any stage of the life of the people. The development for the children can be for children alone. For the oldies can be for oldies, but for the rural people, they are receptive to learn at any stage and any point of time throughout the life. Otherwise, it's called as lifelong learning also. It's already called as, according to Millennium Development Goals, L3 farmers, lifelong learning. So lifelong learning is the process which should be introduced by the extension agencies to make the people receptive at any point of time in their life. Number three is continuous learning. The learning will not be stoppable at any point of time. The resources are changing, the land resources are modified, and a lot of people are changing the farming. There are a lot of drift in agriculture, there are a lot of shift in agriculture, climatological aberrations change the rural community like anything. So the continuous learning should be concentrated in the rural community. Number four is motivated learning. All should be motivated for a proper development. In the sense, farmers are to be motivated by extension worker to increase the income level, to diversify the enterprises, and also to expand the enterprises according to the needs, interests, wants, and situations of the people. So the motivation is a continuous process. And last one, the concept tells you is the capacity building. The capacity building is the concept which will be enhancing the livelihood of the people. They have to be brought to the mainstream of development. This is how the concept clarifies. Number two is the objectives of extension education. We've got a lot of objectives, but we are focusing only on the 5. One is the farmers or the people in the local area must be able to discover and deliver something and all that. They have a lot of potential in them, but they have to discover, identify the problem. For example, the problems can be put to the fore by means of PRA methodology. You're asking the people to tell their own needs, to tell their own interests and all that. So they are responsible to excavate their own problem and discover their own problems. Number two is they have to be made to adopt the technical guidance which we give to them. Technically they will not be sound. Technology is starving people must be given more scientific methods of farming. Number four is leadership development. The confidence level of the villagers, or be it a farmer or a farm women or a farm labor, will be very low. The confidence level must be excavated, and that has to be enhanced in the rural areas. So confidence building is another important exercise which will make the farmers to become a good leader. Leader is essential because he has to decide, he has to take a lot of initiative, he has to serve as a guidepost for the people, he should be a motivator, he should be an enthusiastic person, and he should have a lot of knowledge to extend that to the village community. So leadership is yet another important objective we have to focus for upbringing the rural people. Number 5 is feedback. So a lot of people will be having differential feedback. It could be positive feedback, it could be negative feedback also. So we have to concentrate on them to have a good feedback. Accordingly, the problems will be addressed. For example, the farmer says, because we don't have any water available in the villages, we don't have any kind of catchment areas, we do not have any water management practices. So these are all the problems which we face in the day-to-day life, and what is your optimum solution for that? So those kind of feedback will be able to judge ourselves or assess the people. Accordingly, we have to plan the program to meet the needs and interests of the people. So these are all the 5 objectives which have to be taken care of. Number 3 is the principle of extension education. The principle, there are nearly about 6 principles. Number 1 is principle of cultural difference. Because looking into the rural area will be imbibed with a lot of cultural heritage. People are with the heritage values. People follow the traditional knowledge. So once you are going to get along with the people, you have to study the cultural difference among the various people living in the particular geographical area. As an extension worker, you have to address the people looking into the cultural differences. So once you understand the cultural differences, you have to move with them, cope with them, understand the reality and get along with them. So ultimately, success is ensured among yourself. Number 2 is principle of grassroots. In the sense, you have to address the local community, the local problem, the local needs. The locality is to be taken into consideration before you are going to impart a new program. For example, a locality is full of drought, or else a locality is full of brimming water. What is your option? Let you think. The option would be for the dryland people, you have a catchment, or you got a farm ponds to be constructed, or you got a contour farming. Accordingly, you have to plan. So local needs and interests are to be taken care of to fulfill the second principle. Number 3 is the principle of interests and needs. Whatever the program we give, whatever the options you give, whatever the benefits you give, unless otherwise you assess the needs and interests of the people, nothing will be turning positive. When you want a good impact, when you want a good results, when you got a good impact in the sense of tangible results, you have to concentrate on the needs and interests of the rural people. The needs would be many, the interests could be many. So you have to capitalize the needs and you have to work with the interests of the rural people, so they'll be very happy so that you fulfill the needs and interest. Number 4 is principle of indigenous knowledge. We are all aware of this. Indigenous knowledge is one which will be again beholden by the rural community. They will be very much laggards, or they will be very skeptical to shift towards a modern farming. So in this juncture, you have to be very careful in concentrating on the indigenous knowledge and how this knowledge can be blended with the scientific knowledge. Blending of indigenous knowledge and scientific knowledge is important to have a very much strengthened farming. According to M.S. Swaminathan, the renowned eminent scientist of agriculture is mostly interested to combine the indigenous knowledge and the scientific wisdom blend together for the scientific development of agriculture. Number 5 is principle of cooperation and participation. Unless and otherwise you are not interested in the people to garner the support of the people to participate in various programs or projects and all that, you will not be successful. Because cooperation is very much important in a rural area, and also the participation is also yet another mandatory quality which is expected. Unless these people participate, no involvement could be done. So participation and cooperation are the 2 integral part you have to take care of while you are working with the rural people. The principle of learning by doing. Of course, it talks more on the psychomotor domain. The people have to work with the rural people by telling them a lot of skills, The skills means all the cognitive, not the cognitive one, but psychomotor domain has to be touched upon. For example, the farmers are to be given an operation, a farming operation. He has to work on that. That kind of hands-on experience will be making him more confident, and also it will promote his behavioral change also. The two important things will be brought in when you apply this principle of learning by doing, because change in behavior and change in attitude, and it builds a lot of confidence amongst the rural people. This is about a nutshell of principle of extension education. Friends, well, you'll know that philosophy of extension education by Kelsey and Herney in 1967 specifically tells you about not what to think but how to think. What to think is whatever technology is not important, but how it has to be done. That's called learning by doing. How component is very much important than what component. Number two is specific advice is to be given for the farmers. For example, we are all having a technology-savvy world. Technologies are brimming like anything, but there is still a gap of 33.3% of technology not reaching the people. So for this, you have to make a technical advice, specific advice, and advanced technologies to the farming community. Number three is counseling is also important. Most of the time, people have a volley of questions, parrying lot of questions, lot of doubts, and invariably to all ages, be it a small farmer, big farmer, youth or farm women or youngsters, whoever will be in the groove of the scientific community or farming community, they'll have the problem of posing lot of questions for them. So for those people, for this downtrodden, you have to do a counseling in a better way so they can be impregnated with a lot of new ideas into them. And another important area is a gap. What is to be done, what ought to be done. So what is already existing, what ought to be there. Actually, that is a gap between the existing situation and what you have to do it. So the gap should be filled up. So ultimately, the philosophy of extension will be reaching the people like anything. Another last one is levels of extension education. There are two levels here. Number one is extension education will be acting as a education in teaching and training stream. Similarly, extension education will act as a service to rural people to upgrade the farming community by providing a lot of services. So accordingly, they'll be solving their own problems in the field level. This is about, in a nutshell, on the philosophy of extension education. Ultimately, and it will be the last part of my lecture, is that the process indicators are the base called as process of extension education. Here we have got a five-fold components here. Number one is, before addressing the rural people, you have to collect a lot of facts available through benchmark survey or baseline survey and all that. Number one is collection of facts. Number two is analyzing the situation. Number three is teaching very good objectives for them. And fourth is evaluation. The fifth is reconsideration. These five components must be taken into consideration for a successful extension work at the field level. Thank you for the opportunity given to me.